Chapter 2 The Hellhound of Huldoon. Brute was dead serious. Thatcher and Norrie Hargrove watched in astonishment from the double swinging doors that opened from the kitchen onto the backyard as Brute, now shirtless, pulled the plow through the soil. The horse's harness wrapped around his shoulders and arms. He was moving faster than Tomas, and something told them this wasn't just a burst out of the gate. Brute was muscle on top of stone with a molten core. Still, they watched him plow the entire field. He started sweating on the second acre. His pace didn't slow until the 40th. By then, Azalea, watching from the tree line, still hadn't lost interest. Remember the raven-haired girl from the auction? She was, in fact, the sister of those two other women. Her name was Azalea, and her sisters' names were Phoebe and Iris. Together, they ran a potion shop in town. That would have been the normal way to introduce herself to Brute. Instead, they only traded glances at the auction before she made him pay an extra 60,000 coin for no reason at all. That part still made her chuckle. Something about the giant oaf intrigued her, so she decided to visit the farm unannounced and unnoticed the next morning. To her utter shock and delight, there he was, standing in the unfiltered morning sun with no shirt on, dragging that dreadful plow through the earth. One thing perplexed her. He had a head full of hair, yet not a single follicle on the rest of his body. His skin was tough like leather, but completely hairless. It was quite the conundrum. The curious case of the missing body hair. Azalea had superb vision. Being from Underrealm, she could practically see in the dark. So in the brilliance of broad daylight, she clocked him with perfect clarity and then some. Even from her place among the trees, she could see the sweat bead on his bare shoulders, then drop and trace paths down the intensely carved muscles and a few nasty scars. We're talking muscles upon muscles, especially in his arms, legs, shoulders, and abdomen. Whether the droplets were ambitious enough to ford each muscle or chose instead to run rivers between them, Azalea spent a good part of the morning watching each one find its own path down the big brute's body. To her, it was a morning well wasted. She waited long enough to be sure she wasn't seen and to judge whether he might repeat his performance tomorrow. From what she could gather, all signs pointed to this not being a one-time deal. Before she left Hargrove Farm, she had already decided to return the next morning. Brute walked into the kitchen for lunch. Norrie had set the dining room table for 3, Brute's bench along the side closest to the doorway. She served bacon garden sandwiches with cinch fritters, an old recipe from her mother that hid the less desirable parts of pigs and chickens in deep-fried balls of batter. Norrie's pride, though, lay in the bread, homemade sourdough, her fluffiest loaf yet. Brute examined it carefully. "What is it?" she asked. Hunched over like that, so delicate and precise, the huge burly man looked almost fragile. He replied, "You made this yourself? From scratch?" "Yes, I did." "And you use yeast?" "Yes, I did." Norrie now saw where he was going. "I want you to teach me how to make the yeast." "I can do that. We can make a list of ingredients and head to town one day." "I already have the list and a recipe." "Can I see it?" Norrie asked. "No." "Oh, okay." "It's in my head." "I see." She was about to ask him to write it down, but decided against it. If he didn't know how to read or write, that would explain why the recipe was in his head, and she didn't want to embarrass him. "All right then, we'll go to town and we'll have everything we need." "Some of the things will be hard to get." "Oh, trust me, there's a shop for everything in Cutler." "Even magical things?" he asked. "There's a potion shop on Nestoon and Cortair. Remember those sisters from the auction? They run it." "They're from Underrealm?" "Genuine witches. A lot of folks in Cutler are. The war ended here a long time ago." Brute nodded, brow furrowed in what looked like deep contemplation. At last he agreed to go into town with her and gather everything they needed for brewing. Then he gathered all 3 plates, each one still piled with a sandwich and fritters, sat on his bench and polished off every bite. Nori was dumbfounded. It all happened so fast. Yet what had she expected? The man looked like 5 of her stitched together, so of course he needed giant-sized portions. "That was very good, Nori," he said approvingly. "I'm glad you enjoyed my lunch," she replied, a quick snipe the big lug never even noticed. "Is there a place to wash off?" "There's nothing in this house that can hold you, Brute, but if you follow me outside, I rigged a nozzle to the well line." Nori led him to a pipe that ran back to the neighborhood watermill. A couple of years ago, the town clerics installed this system. We only used the pipeline to bring water closer to the crops, but when you moved in, I figured out how to prop it up so it arches overhead. I set the nozzle at the center of the archway, so when I turn this valve, it should... She twisted the valve, and water sprinkled from the nozzle. It actually worked! Brute was already hurried under the spray. Shirtless and with travel pants sorely in need of a rinse, he shouted, "The water's cold, but it's clean." The chill barely seemed to bother him. "It's so refreshing," he declared as water splashed into his mouth. "When you finish up, I'll give you a haircut." "You cut hair too?" "I do it all, big guy." She smiled and went inside to make another round of sandwiches for herself and her dad. A little later, she had Brute seated on the bench in the middle of the room, snipping away with her specialized scissors. She trimmed his hair so it could still dangle over his eyes when not properly parted, and she left the beard, getting as close as she could with the clippers. It wasn't that she lacked a straight razor, but she had only one left after breaking the first 2 on his hide-like skin, so he got an in-depth trim instead. They never did get around to visiting the shops. There was no rush. The barley needed weeks to grow before harvest. During that time, Brute settled into a routine with the Hargroves. They shared 3 meals a day and slowly learned each other's quirks. When to stay clear of the big guy, how to repair furniture he accidentally broke with sheer force. After about a month, they found a groove. Thatcher joked privately to Nori that living with Brute felt like boarding Thomas the horse, though he would never say so to Brute's face. Every day the Hargroves still thanked their guest for reclaiming their home. Even when they got on one another's nerves, it wasn't a bad setup, and life finally felt almost normal, until one fateful night. They were enjoying a late supper of roast chicken and taters when Nori spotted something through the window. "Fire! The ridge is on fire!" she yelled. By the time Brute rose from his bench, Thatcher and Nori were already at the glass. "It's a dog," she said. "It's on fire!" Thatcher shouted. "Damn it!" Brute slammed his fist on the table, sending plates and glasses flying. "Damn it to hell! It found me again!" He seized the bench he had been sitting on and hurled it against the wall. "Whoa!" the Hargroves cried. "The damn thing follows me wherever I go!" Brute paced, struggling to contain himself. "What?" Nori asked, exasperated. "It's a dire swamp hellhound. It's been stalking me since the Battle of Huldoon." Thatcher and Nori stared at each other to confirm they were both hearing the same thing, but Brute was already out the door, sprinting toward the burning hound on the ridge. Soul Ripper lay ignored by the threshold. Nori found it oddly sweet that he preferred fists over steel for this fight. The night turned surreal. They watched an enormous man wrestle a flaming dog for hours and wondered why neither burned. At last, Thatcher and Nori gave up and went to bed. Outside, Brute wrestled the hellhound till dawn. When they tired, Brute would shout at the beast, and it would howl back. "Get lost, you stupid thing! Ow! Ugh!" After circling and exchanging such pleasantries, they would recover just enough to resume the brawl. By the time Azalea arrived for her morning farm boy observation, she found a flaming dog and a mountain of a man still locked in their strange dance. What the fuck? She muttered to no one. It took a while for Azalea to grasp the whole cycle. What fascinated her most was what Nori noticed when Brute finally trudged inside. The big oaf ducked through the kitchen door, looking utterly ravaged. Holy hell, Brute, you look like a piece of charcoal, Nori said, wiping soot from his chest. Then she paused. There are no burn marks. How? Brute poured himself a mug of water, sat on the oversized bench they had provided, and answered, I fought for a long time. The Arcanist found ways to enhance me. At first, Karm only wanted me invincible in battle. Then he and his cronies improved their craft. They changed me so many times that the alterations took hold. Now I'm pretty sure it's permanent. My size, my strength, my skin, my healing. The Arcanists are dead, but their magic lives on in me, keeping me damn near unkillable. Some of the best warriors in Grishambark have tried. You sound like a god. I'm no god. Have you been to Underrealm? Yes. Nori forced her mind not to wander, and asked an easier question. What was it like? Total hell. And somehow you survived hell. Trust me, surviving isn't all it's cracked up to be. Did you kill it? She asked. What? The dog. No, it ran off. What if it comes back? Then I'll fight it again. If it keeps following you, maybe you should try something other than screaming at it and wrestling it. Brute gave her a look that might have been offense or deep thought. With him, the furrowed brow covered every emotion. Such is the way with these rare titans among mortals. Only the fiercest warrior could look so barbaric. He had walked through grand halls and the filthiest depths alike, always with that same ancient scowl. Then he spoke. Like what? There are plenty of ways to domesticate an animal, but each creature is different. We break wild horses by riding them. And Pa told me his dad used to soothe the cattle by playing music. How did he play music? He had a lute. What happened to the lute? Brute asked, his intentions obvious. No idea. I never saw it in the house while I was growing up, so you'll have to ask Pa. My mother played the oboe, though, and Pa still keeps it in the upstairs closet. Maybe it is sentimental, or maybe it is in case I ever take an interest. The what? Nori wasn't sure he had heard anything after the word oboe. It's an oboe, sort of like a clarinet with a different reed. Reed? Oh boy, you really don't know anything about music or instruments, do you? When I was a boy, I was the war drum for the Banner Battalion in the Ravinia Infantry. Okay, that's something. At least you might have good tempo. Yes, I can keep a rhythm. Nori assured herself he knew a few musical terms, so he would not be a total lost cause. If you want, we can learn to play it together. Then I will be ready when the Hellhound of Huldoon returns. Yes, shall we get started? I must sleep first. Oh, right, and maybe a shower or two before you climb into those fresh linens. He poured the last of the water from the pitcher into his mug, drained it in one long swallow, and headed back outside to the makeshift shower. After scrubbing away the torch marks and drying off, Brute trudged to his room. Nori tried not to stare, but he was simply too fascinating. Even half asleep, he dragged his feet, and the grinding sound made her wonder how his massive stubby toes did not scar the hardwood. How long before she and Pa were prying up planks for replacement? Brute slept for a couple of hours. When his snoring threatened to shake the rafters, Nori slipped out. Thatcher did not seem to mind, maybe because age had dulled his hearing. She made a supply run to town, gathering food and scouting the shops for the ingredients they would need to brew beer. Most items were easy to find, and anything rare could be sourced from the potion shop girls. For underrealmers, they were surprisingly friendly. The next few days settled into two pursuits: farming and learning the oboe. Thankfully, Nori found 2 reeds, so they did not have to share. She took to the instrument quickly, a natural talent inherited from her mother, but Brute struggled to translate weapon skills into musical finesse. Determination and resilience were his strongest assets, and with no battles to fight, no barley ready for brewing, he poured that stubborn will into mastering the oboe. Days melted into weeks of practice until the Hellhound of Huldoon returned. The howling started just after midnight. Thatcher and Nori heard Brute stomping around downstairs. He had the sole bedroom on the ground floor, mostly to spare the staircase. Before Nori could reach him, he was already outside, and in his fury, he had forgotten the oboe. She grabbed it and sprinted through the fields. By the 4th acre, Brute was pummeling the flaming dog for setting their crops ablaze. Chaos reigned. The spring barley was nearly full grown, yet acres 4 and 5 were already up in flames. The Hellhound had not bothered with the ridge this time. He came straight through the fields. If they could not stop it here, the entire crop might vanish. "Lead it out!" Nori shouted, ash and embers swirling like a cursed snowstorm. "Get it away from the barley!" Brute obeyed at once, releasing the beast and dashing for the ridge where they had first fought. The dog followed. While Nori raced for water, Thatcher stumbled outside with 2 full buckets. Life on the rift meant fires were not exactly rare, so the Hargroves acted without hesitation. Nori dug trenches and tossed green bushels to steer the flames, and together they doused the blaze before it could spread. They lost acres 4 and 5, but the remaining 48 were saved. That night, there was no chance to test the oboe experiment. Things had escalated too quickly, and Nori was lucky she had stowed the instrument before the chaos. Fortunately, the Hellhound's 3rd visit came sooner than expected, and it appeared again on the original ridge. Perhaps the second battle had marked the spot as their dueling ground. It didn't matter. This time Brute was ready. He did not start with the oboe. If he had, he knew the hound would have put up too much of a fight. First, he needed to wear it down. Their clashes always ended with 2 signature moves, and each combatant guarded against the other's finisher. Brute went for the headlock, while the Hellhound aimed for Brute's crotch. The beast had no special fondness for that target, but during an earlier scuffle, Brute reacted so badly to a bite there that the hound never forgot. As long as Brute kept the beast away from his nethers, he could conserve energy and let it tire itself out. At last, the Hellhound of Huldoon broke free from their grapple for the usual shouting match. It howled at Brute, but this time he did not yell back. Since when did the human stay silent? The hound tore its gaze from the sky, where the stars were fading into dawn, and stared at its arch nemesis. Brute was simply sitting there, holding something. He tried to cross his thick legs while raising the oboe to his mouth, though his knees stuck straight up like tent poles. The first few notes came out as a mess. He was nervous and still very much a beginner. Yet he pressed on, and soon found the simple melody Nori had taught him, one of her mother's favorites. It is hard to capture music on the page, so as your narrator, I have decided to include the original words to the lullaby Brute played for the Hellhound of Huldoon. Read them not for the lyrics alone, but for the harmony you can almost hear between the lines. For that is what the Hellhound heard when Brute played the oboe on the ridge. Settle now, my darling, in the paths of time. Don't worry about the darkness under your bed. The sun will save you as the paths align. For grace and joy, you will dance in the sun instead. Stay away from the shadows, for dangers they do keep. Underrealm is forbidden for those who see that the path of virtue seeker avoids the deep. Only true descendants of the sun can it be. Follow now, sweet darling, to the end of time, where only in glory do the dawn paths shine. Ne'er be the one to go off astray. My love, come back to me. Come back to me. Come back to me. Don't ever fall too far away. Brute came so close to nailing the song perfectly. The oboe spoke so vibrantly. You could almost hear the words in the melody, as if the ghost of Nori's mother were humming along through the instrument. It was beautiful, and Brute only slipped once, adding an extra "come back to me" at the end. The Hellhound didn't notice. He had never heard the song before. In fact, it had never heard any song before. That was when Brute realized the hound was simply sitting there in front of him, front legs crossed, pointy ears erect, flames turned down to a simmer, watching him play, completely transfixed. So Brute did the only thing he could think to do. He started over and played the song again. That's what all beginners do. Once you master a piece from start to finish, it becomes your bread and butter. You don't just learn it, you learn it well. You live in it until you're comfortable enough to tackle something harder. Brute kept playing. He did better with his eyes closed. He didn't need them open for the Hellhound. Even with its flames on simmer, he could still feel its heat on his face, like standing near a wood-burning furnace. Not right up on it, but close enough to feel the warmth. He played the nursery song while they both sat on the ridge, and Azalea admired him from afar. She had arrived some time ago, unannounced and unnoticed as usual, guarding her intentions until she was sure it was worth wasting time on this big oaf. Watching him farm shirtless in the sun was one thing, probably the best entertainment she was likely to get in this sleepy town. Talking to him, engaging with him, was a whole other case of snakes. Men were exhausting. She'd been with only a couple, and they were all work, a lot of work. She had to be careful about how to put herself out on the limb again. And right now, watching this powerhouse of a man play music for a wild hellhound made her realize Brutus Tornature was worth the trouble.